Chair of YPN. Thank you everyone for being here with us. Today, we will be going over the best practices in today's evolving market. Our affiliates are an extension of a realtor's job. Here are some of the ones you may choose from, and we'll save all questions for the end. Today, we have on our panel our immediate past president, Mindy, Sage with YPN Escrow, Andrew with Central Escrow Group, Joe with Orange Coast Title, Cosmo with New Aim Funding, and via Zoom, we have James with State Farm Insurance. We're going to start off with Mindy. Can you go over some of your best practices as a realtor?
Thank you, Kimberly. Good afternoon, WSGVR family and friends. I'm Mindy Yeh with Remax 2000. Thank you for joining us live and virtually. Grateful for the invite, and it's an honor to be part of this elite of panelists. I would like to share some important points that I practiced as a realtor for 21 years. I won't go into details. Our panelists will elaborate on their expertise and experiences in their respective field. So for buyers, the do's, first thing, I reach out, schedule a conference call with buyer, lender, and myself to pre-qualify. The buyer, once pre-qualified, buyer to analyze buyer's monthly mortgage comfort payment level, case the property at a different times of the daytime, nighttime, once your offers is accepted, or during the weekdays and weekends, to check out the neighborhood prior to opening escrow, catalogs the pros and the cons of the neighborhood. For example, the pros, it's nearby school, it's nearby park, and then the cons, the smell, for example, industry odor, if there's a fertilizer company around, or if you buy a property on the golf courses, how often does that golf ball hits on the property daily? Contact city planners department to verify if additionals have permits, whether they're permitted or not, and any violations, any city liens or solar payments and terms and recalls on the property. What types of upcoming projects or future business for the city that can impact the value of your home. And if the city has a pre-sales inspection, it's a report that some cities require before you can close escrow. Be transparent. Always have an open communication with your realtor and your lenders prior to taking any actions related to your home purchase and during escrow process. Be sure to read all disclosures, preliminary title report, NHG report, CC&Rs and bylaws, HOA prior to your contingency period, and address any issues and concerns ASAP with your realtor so that you are not at a risk of losing your earnest money deposit. For example, with HOA, some of the critical criteria, if you want to rent that property, as an investment, some HOAs will not allow you to have tenants. And then if you want a pad, sometimes they don't allow you to have certain size pad or how many, they have limitations on them. And for the don'ts, for the buyer, never enter the subject property without your realtor accompanying you, or make any changes or improvement of the home prior to closing escrow until title is recorded in your name. Don't skip the professional, physical, and termite inspections. This is crucial. It can break or kill the deal. Be present during inspections. It's best to hear from the inspectors and not do a third party from your realtor. So for the seller side, get all your disclosure signed at the same time that you sign your listing agreement and get it out of the way because everybody gets busy. Seller has 5 days to deliver buyer all the disclosures from the acceptance days, and then ensure all disclosures are complete by your seller. Check all boxes, initials, days, and signed by seller because per CAR legal counsel, if on the transfer disclosure TDS form, if your seller missed a box, that's a loophole for the buyer to cancel their transaction, and your seller will be very upset with you. Order prelim title reports, ensure that there's no liens and other issues or clouds on title that you need to address because it will require time to resolve. Order NHG reports, order termite reports, and ask the seller for their mortgage statements, so you can address that and pay off early. Give the seller net sheets, then prepare the house to get it clean, get it staged, and make sure all the light bulbs are working. Make sure there's smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, because the lender will require that as well. Clean all the bathroom touch-ups, trim the yard, and then ask your seller to start packing, because the less is more, so the buyer can imagine, how that house would be for them. And then order photography, videos, ask the seller if they ever had insurance claims on the property. James will go elaborate on that later as well. And then the don'ts for seller, never, no exceptions to allow buyer to move into their belongings until after close escrow due to liability. That's all I have.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Such Gomez with my NHG. Just a little bit about me. I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary with my NHG, and my NHG has been around for over 25 years. So a couple of tips for the natural hazard disclosure. Number 1, order your NHG right at listing, because there's no money up front, and if you don't close, you do not pay. There's no risk involved. So just order that NHG right up front. See if you are in certain hazard zones, because if you are in a flood or fire zone, you are legally required to get insurance. So might as well just order that NHG right up front. That's one of the number 1 tips. So who's responsible for ordering the NHG? It's responsibility of the listing agent to order the NHG. So just keep that in mind. However, a lot of the time, we do see that escrow will order the NHG, but you're going to make your life a little bit more difficult, and the escrow's life a little bit more difficult if you're just writing seller's choice. So make sure on your contract that you're putting the correct NHG company that you want to use. You need a team. Just like Kimberly said, we're an extension of you. So Mindy and Kimberly are realtors. We're an extension of them. They need a team. Don't just leave it up to seller's choice. Write down what NHG company you want to use. So another question that we get is the natural hazard disclosure industry regulated? It's not. So that's why whenever you see an NHG report from anyone, none of them look the same. We all have to legally disclose 6 hazards. 2 are earthquake, 2 are fire, 2 are flood. What do all those have in common? Insurance. That's what we have to legally disclose. Other than that, we can put whatever we want within that NHG report. So when you choose an NHG company, you choose one that's going to have your back and provide you with everything that you need other than those legally mandated disclosures. So let me talk about that briefly. Not all NHG companies provide local disclosures. So what does that mean? It means that the city and county provide disclosures regarding fire, flood, and earthquake. Why does this matter? It matters because the city and the county override the state every single time. Let me give you an example. I live in Claremont. We have had a lot of fires over the last couple of years. And one of my childhood best friends, her home burned down maybe 30 years ago when she was just a kid. And they're trying to sell, well, they did sell the property, the land. And the state of California said, hey, you're not in a fire zone. The city of Claremont said, yes, you are. The city of Claremont's going to override the state of California every single time. And like I said, all NHG companies provide you that local data. So when you're doing your team, when you're creating your team, make sure you're choosing one that's going to have a great report, provide that local data, see if they're vetted by CAR, see what they have in their terms and conditions, do your research on your affiliates, and make sure that you're creating a great team. Another thing that we see a lot, people don't read their NHG. read your NHG. See if there are certain hazards in it. Because if you're selling a property, you wait until the last moment to get an NHG, and your client's asking you, what is this? And you didn't even look at it, you're gonna sound like you don't care about them. Read your NHG. If you have any questions about it, contact your NHG rep. We will go through it with you. Another reason why to order that NHG right up front, for example, so there's something called an environmental report. It's not legally required by law, but we recommend that you get it. So I had a client, she ordered the NHG right up front, added environmental. She asked me, what is this hazardous waste site? And luckily we have a geologist on staff. I called him, I asked him, what is this hazardous waste site? And he told me that this property that she was selling was on one of the worst hazardous waste sites in America. So I had to tell the realtor, I'm really sorry, but you're gonna have to tell your client that this property you're trying to sell is on one of the worst hazardous waste sites in America. But since she did her due diligence, she opened that NHG, read it listing, she was able to get her client a different property. Do your due diligence, order your NHG right up front. That is the best thing that you can do. And what I want to close with, or what are some tools within the NHG report an agent can utilize? Like I said, a lot of people aren't reading their NHG. People aren't utilizing their NHG. Within that NHG report, we provide you whether or not a property is going to have that Melrose tax. We're giving you that for $74. $74 to tell you whether or not property is going to have Melrose tax. It's amazing. We also give you a supplemental tax calculator as well. $74 for all those tools. Please utilize your NHG, read it, and if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. And like I said earlier, make it easier for escrow. Escrow already has enough on their plate. They're putting everything together. They're basically the mama bear, and they have all these cubs and they're trying to get everyone together. They're already busy. Make it easier on them and choose exactly who you want for your NHG. And I'm gonna give it over to Andrew, who's the mama bear.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Andrew, Central Escrow Group Business Development Executive. Thanks Sage and Mindy for all the tips. Before I go over some tips, I want to tell you a little bit about escrow. So escrow, we're a neutral third party and we're here to take instructions. We follow the RPA and the agents. So if there's anything you need us to know, please let us know in writing. Don't assume. It's very common in escrow transaction that the agents, there's many things happening during the transaction. There could be credits, extensions, things that we may not be aware of. Let us know ASAP. Don't ever assume this could cause some issues later on down the road. We want to take care of it right away. Also, if your client plans to travel, don't assume that we know. Let us know ASAP. We may have to prepare some POAs. There may be some signings that we have to accommodate for. So please, these are things you should let us know right away. And also, one more thing that you shouldn't do is don't ever send money without contacting escrow first. I know as a buyer, you guys are very eager to get into your homes, but first contact escrow, make sure the wire instructions are correct. There's a lot of fraud going on right now, and we don't want your money to end up somewhere else. So please make sure you contact escrow. So now I want to go over some things that you should do. So as you can tell, communication is probably the key to a real estate transaction. We have so many parties involved, including agents, lenders, title, NHD, and overall, we just need to have good communication. As on the seller side, communication is very important in terms of what title company you use. If you have a title company, let us know right away. If you use Joe, let us know right away so we can work on the prelim and start clearing title. Is there any liens or judgments? Are there any payoffs? Is there a solar on the property that we need to know about? Let us know as soon as possible. In normal practices, is escrow, we can make requests for solar, but some of our escrow officers have been noticing that for the company, for Tesla, they're not allowing escrow and they actually have to have the seller call. So that's been a big issue. So make sure you let them know right away. And also a big question we get is withholding. So let us know if the seller is a foreigner. If they are subject to withholding. So make sure they consult with their CPA if they have any questions regarding taxes. On the buyer side, there's a few things that we look out for as well. So make sure you communicate with your escrow officer if you have a lender. Is there a loan involved? If there is, give us the information as soon as possible so we can work with them to start getting approval for the loan. Also, find an insurance agent ASAP. Find insurance, and also if you know how your buyer would like to hold title, please let us know as well. That's also very important. These are all needed for the loan process. So without that, we can't go forward. So the sooner we know, the better. So, as you guys could probably tell, there's a lot of parties involved in the escrow transaction. But one person that I actually worked very closely with is Joe. And Joe's been very helpful to me. And he has some good tips for you guys today. So
thank you for having me here today. There are so many things that I could go over as a point of contact for title company. A title company is also, a neutral party, and we're also the watchdog in the transaction to make sure everything is good for the buyer and everyone is satisfied at the end of the transaction. So we do work very closely with escrow. We do take instructions as well, and we review things that items that are of record. We review the new documents that will go into record once the transaction is closed. One thing I would say before you even get into escrow, if you're the listing agent, make sure you know who is on title, because obviously you're going to be drawing a listing contract and accepting offers with the seller of record. You need to know exactly who the seller of record is, that there's not, possibly another person that's on title that needs to sign, or that you need to adjust who's on title. Also, if the property is in an entity like a trust, an LLC, or a corporation, you're going to have to review the entity documents or rely on the seller's word, your point of contact's word. You should always try to get copies of their entity documents to make sure that they are the appropriate signing party before you enter a listing contract and accept offers as well. Very important. If you are working with a buyer, you will want to, before you even write an offer and get into escrow as well, there obviously, as Mindy mentioned, there's many due diligence on the agent and even the lender. But if one of the resources that a title company has is what is of record on that property, and obviously this will all show on the prelim, but if you're working with a buyer, before you even write an offer, you want to know if there's any extremely high property taxes against this property. You know that the taxes are going to be based on the purchase price, but there's also things like a Melrose tax, which is a community tax, or a bond. These types of taxes can sometimes make the property unaffordable. Another type of tax is a hero or pace lien, which is, it's not a tax, but it's a item that's paid through the taxes. So you want to make sure that the seller is either planning to pay off the pace or hero lien, or that if they are not going to, obviously this is part of your negotiations, but you need to make sure that if it's going to stay on the property, that your buyer can afford to pay for that type of lien attached to the taxes. If you're listing the property, you want to sometimes order the preliminary title report ahead of time. I don't recommend ordering it ahead of time all of the time, but if you know the property is going to go into escrow pretty soon, you should just get it ordered as soon as you can, so you can start addressing what's showing up on the property. Go over that with your title rep if you need to. If you're working with the buyer, also the buyer has to agree on everything that's going to show on the title policy, and they have to review the prelim and decide, which items are not, which items are not acceptable to them. So, you're going to need to review the preliminary title report with your buyer, or have them review it on their own, and make sure they ask questions. If there's any types of liens that look like they could take a long time to clear up, or legal matters that are showing on the report, if you're working with the buyer, make sure you know that the listing agent is aware of these and on top of it. Don't assume that they are, because you're working with your buyers, you know, one of their biggest investments, and you don't want to leave them like, you know, having a triple times the escrow period, and feeling like you didn't do a good job on that. So look at pay attention to what's on that report. If there's a lot of easements on the report, and your buyer is concerned with where the easements are, request plotted easements every time. Just ask your escrow officer to request it, or if you have contact with the title company, request plotted easements. This is going to show you on a color-coded map exactly where the easements are affecting the property. Double check if the property has multiple parcels, if it's a house with a vacant lot next door, or sometimes multiple lots that are all combined. Make sure if you saw that on the listing, make sure you also see it on the prelim, because if the title company is somehow only showing one parcel of land, then you're going to end up closing escrow. It's going to be a big mess if they didn't somehow know that there were multiple parcels included. So on the listing side and the buy side, make sure that you're seeing all the parcels of land included on that report. Look for requirements that could take a long time to fulfill. Those could be sometimes older loans, again, with private lenders that are, you know, maybe paid, maybe not paid. If there's trust documents, that if the owner had previously, you know, passed away, make sure that you have copies of the trust documents, because the title company will ask for those trust documents. And any major liens, if the owner, you know, if they, you won't know this, but if they had, you know, a past marriage or something, and then they had child support, a child support lien, it takes it's one of the longest liens to clear if it comes up last minute, because sometimes just to get a demand for a child support lien, it could take up to 2 weeks. Sometimes it could be obtained faster by, you know, the person who owes the money going down to child support services, but this is something you need to know right away. And liens like judgment, child support judgment, other types of liens, they don't always show on the preliminary title report right away. So you also need to make sure, if you're working with the seller, that you get that statement of information into the title company right away. I know you guys hear that all the time from title reps. Statement of information, get that in right away, send it to the escrow, or send it directly to the title company if you know who you're working with as well. Things that you should not do in terms of title. If the property owner's taxes are due right around the time you're opening escrow, and they're not being paid through the mortgage, you may check with your title or escrow company before you make payments. If you're going to close soon and the taxes are due, the title company may want to be the one who pays those taxes so that they know that the taxes are paid. Title companies rely on what is of record. And if the owner paid by credit card or a check, and that's not cleared, they may require to hold money if they do not see of record that the taxes are paid. This is the same for liens and judgments and things. The owner might say, oh, I know I have to pay this lien. I'm just going to pay it really quick right before, you know, right as we're opening escrow, or we're during escrow. I saw the lien on my prelim. I'm going to go pay that on my own. Do not do that. Bring the money into escrow, have the title company write the check and pay that off so that they know it's paid before closing. Do not, also really big no, very similar to paying things off during escrow. Do not record documents on your own to the property and then just assume that it'll just come up during escrow or it'll come up later in escrow. We can't see those things at the last minute, and there's a delay of about 2 weeks from the time a document is recorded. Sometimes in LA County, it's about 5 days, but in some other counties, it's up to 2 weeks before title companies see it recorded. So do not record things on your own. Always check with escrow and title. If you have to record a change of title or record a release of a lien or things like that, don't record them on your own. Give it to the title company, they'll record it, and it'll make this transaction a lot smoother. If you guys have any other questions about tough situations in title, feel free to reach out to me. Pass it on to Cosmo, my good friend.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the information. And I could, just hearing Joe talk, right, about liens, about clearing stuff, I'm like, wow, I mean, this is so accurate. And you'd be surprised on how common these stuff are, right? They constantly come up. in a transaction. So I am a mortgage lender, and I want to share with you guys some of the tips that I have in regards to helping your clients get their offers accepted in this very competitive market, right? Just a couple tips, real simple tips. So whenever a real estate agent like yourself gives me a client, right? Hey, Cosmo, I have someone that I want you to call and qualify. The first thing I do is qualify them immediately. Why? Because rates are doing what? They're going up, and they just keep on going up. And Tomas asked me earlier, what is the rate right now? It's around 5.5%. So that's, the common rate right now. It could be a little lower, it could be a little higher. That's the reason why whenever you have clients right now who want to buy, we cannot waste time, right? We got to get them approved immediately. The other thing that I do is that I send the realtor a pre-approval package. Now that pre-approval package is really important because some of the things that it's in that package is the DU approval letter. Why is that important? I'm sorry, a quick second. Why is that important? Is because it verifies the income of the client, the information of the client, and also the credit score of the client. And it makes sure that that information is in the guidelines of the loan, right? So worst case scenario, simply put, you don't ever want to spend the time as a real estate agent driving up and down, showing clients property just to find out that they don't qualify for a home when you're in escrow, right? That's the reason why you guys should you should push your lenders to a DU letter. Second thing is the credit score, which is pretty basic, whatever score there is, it's part of the package. And the other thing is evidence of proof of funds. So if you're listing a property, right, and you don't know whether you should accept this property, if you see that they got money in the bank account and that it's legit, that's going to help you accept that offer, right? And the other thing would be, let's see here. Okay, this is the last thing. It's a really simple thing, but you'd be surprised how much this works. Whenever an agent makes an offer on a property, I tell them, do me a favor and CC me on the property. On all those offers, I am calling the listing agent with you guys, right? And I'm saying, hey, I'm Cosmo Sanchez. I'm representing so-and-so. Do you have any questions in regards to their verification of employment and, of their status of qualifying for this loan? Yeah, Cosmo, I'm seeing the email, the package here. I said, yeah, you can open up that page. You can see their income here, their employer, yada, yada, yada. Okay, Cosmo, thank you. Guys, it's great to get an offer accepted once you talk to a listing agent. Does that happen all the time? No, but it happens a lot. And so I'm grateful for that little tip there. The other thing I do is that I reach out to my professional, right? Like Andrew and Joe, when we open up escrow, all that work. And finally, we get a property, we get a buyer accepted, right? We open up escrow. And I'm with you guys. I'm super excited. It's not easy right now, right? For buyers, it's definitely difficult. So the things that as soon as that happens, we're in escrow, officially open escrow. I reach out to Andrew, I reach out to Joe, and I get a fee estimate. Why is that important? Because that lets the buyer know what are they coming out of pocket, right? Who wants to buy a $900,000 home and not be sure on your closing costs? You want to do the courtesy to the buyer, right? And let them know, hey, be prepared. This is how much the estimate is. Now, before all this, and it's been mentioned already, it's really important that we involve the insurance professional. In this case, it's James Chen. He's going to talk a little bit about that. And the reason why that's important is because we want to make sure that the client has a proper coverage in regards to dwelling, right? We don't want to put them in a place where they're liable and, they could, not have the proper insurance and lose a lot of money. So that's all I have for you guys. Like I said, short and sweet. There's a lot that goes on, and I'm just touching on the main stuff, right? There's a lot of things that I do on behind the scenes, but these are the things that really just happen naturally when I'm in a conversation with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Cosmo.
Thank you, Cosmo. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Well, congratulations. You just purchased your dream home. You've done all the work so far. Congratulations. You just purchased your dream home. You've done all the work so far. You've saved for years. You've researched the homes. You put in competitive offers. You've done everything. So now you're in escrow. Right now is a time to leverage your resources and let your panelist partners take over and do all the hard work. What I mean by that, Andrew takes care of the escrow, Sage and NHD, Joseph in title, Cosmo in lending, and Mindy, your sales person, that your buying agent that got you this property. Let them do the rest of the work. What I mean by that, you've done everything so far. For insurance, I make it very simple. All I need is your name, your address, and the property address. With that, I could get a quote. I'll send it over to you. You like the quote, I'll give it over to Andrew for closing. So when closing time comes, all he needs to do is reach out to Cosmo and ask, what's the mortgagee clause? What's the bank lending account number? And there you go, evidence of insurance is done. So all this behind the scenes, insurance is one component, but a very important component. And that's what we do. So what does your homeowner's insurance cover? It covers your dwelling, which is your building, the physical structure. It also covers your personal property. Personal property could be your belongings, your furniture inside the home. It also includes additional structures such as a shed, a garage, and also loss of use. Loss of use meaning if the home was involved in a claim, you would need a place to stay. So very important to have proper loss of use on your homeowner's insurance. In addition, it also covers liability coverage. If someone were to get injured or hurt on your premises or even away from your premises, your homeowner's insurance would cover that. Some of the ways your homeowner's insurance has additional coverages not many people know. It extends, like I said, not just to your home, but outside. Your dog bites somebody at the park, that's covered under your homeowner's insurance under the liability portion. If you rent a shed where you keep all your personal belongings, that's also covered under your homeowner's policy at no additional charge. All the additional coverages extend from your home over to those additional structures that we talked about. Some ways to save some money on insurance, right? Everyone wants to save money. You also want to have the best coverage. Some of the ways you could save money is just keeping your home nice and clean, clean up the debris, clear all the drains, make sure you maintain your home the way you maintain your car. Every few weeks or months, take a look out for things that can clog, take a look out for your gutters and drains, things that can cause water damage or fire damage if they accumulate. One other way to save money on your homeowner's insurance is to modify the deductible. The deductible is the portion of the insurance that is covered by the policy holder before insurance kicks in. So you might want to get a deductible that's comfortable for you to absorb before insurance kicks in. That way, you're only using your insurance for what I call devastating losses, not aggravating losses. The difference is fire, burning the whole home, that's very devastating. You don't want to pay for that out of pocket. You want insurance to cover it. But things that could be aggravating could be some wet spots from the shower, dripping on the floor, things like that. You might want to absorb that cost so the insurance is not expensive and it doesn't go into your claim history. Things that are aggravating but are able to fix out of pocket, I recommend to do so out of pocket and with a higher deductible and thus lower your premium. Other ways to lower your premium: if you maintain the home, if you have newer utilities, report it to your insurance agent. If you have new plumbing, new air conditioning, new electrical, and everything, let your insurance agent know there's discounts for that. If your home has surveillance that reports a central station, fire, burglar alarm, let your agent know there are deductions for that. In addition, also, might want to consider bundling with your auto. You'll get discounts on your auto and discounts on your home. So make sure you leverage your panelist partners. Cosmo, he's the lending guy. You know about lending money. Use a bank's money to buy your home. Go to Andrew for escrow, Sage for NHD, Joseph for title, and your realtor, Mindy Yeh. And congratulations, guys. Let us do the rest of the heavy lifting once you're in escrow.
Thank you so much, James. Thank you everyone here, and thank you everyone via Zoom and everyone that have come in person. I hope we were helpful. Thank you on behalf of the YPN and Education Committee. Thank you.
Q&A.
Oh, is it? Oh, I see one. Okay. Sorry, just one question. From Jim, could we provide seller a generic SI upfront?
The question was, can we provide the seller a generic SI?
upfront.
Yeah, you can provide them that to fill it out, but the SI will not be cleared unless there's an actual file opened at the title company. So yes, you can have there is a form you can get from, if you want, you can contact me, I have one, but you definitely need to reference the property, and then you're gonna have to reference the order number so that it gets to the right place and the right people for that. And it can be reviewed ahead of time, but you have to open the file with the title company.
And then we have one more for Joe. How would the title company handle a child support lien when the responsible party is a fugitive on the run?
So if the responsible party is a fugitive on the run, well, I mean, it sounds like maybe one of the owners is a fugitive on the run. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like it's a question really just of getting a demand for that amount owed. And never had that situation, but I would say, you know, you just need, it's really just a question of getting the demand. I don't order demands, so you might ask an escrow officer if they think they'd be able to get a demand, but I mean, imagine we just, as long as we can get the demand for the payoff, then we would be fine. And even the person who put the lien on that individual, the fugitive on the run, could probably help with that as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Hi, Karen.
I have two questions. One is for SAFE and the other one for James. SAFE, it's a very common to have two separate NHD reports with some differences. There is discrepancy. One doesn't say something, and the other one says that it's in the flooding area, one says it's not in the flooding area.
Yeah, we have run into issues where, say, you'll get an NHG from one company and the next NHG you get, it says something completely different. So the reason why that may be is because the state of California updates their maps daily. So sometimes a specific flood zone or fire zone may have just recently been mapped and added to that NHG. Or for some reason, it may have been removed. So that could be an issue. Or sometimes there's just mistakes within an NHG and someone didn't catch something, someone missed something. But for us with my NHG, we have all our information from the government and from the state of California. For example, that FEMA flood zone is from directly FEMA. If you're in a FEMA flood zone, it's designated by FEMA. There's no way around it. You're in a flood zone. So really, unfortunately, it can happen for NHG companies. What I can say for my NHG though is that we've never had a claim. We've never had an issue. And we have 10 million E&O insurance just to cover that if we did find an issue, but luckily within over the 25 years, we've never had an issue, knock on wood. But also what I want to just say as well is find an NHG company that in their terms and conditions, if you are gonna find someone that does have a fault within that NHG report, like for example, in my NHG's term and conditions, if we do for some reason give you a false, inaccurate NHG hazard, we protect not only the broker, but the realtor, the escrow company, the seller, and everyone involved. But like I said, we've never had an issue. But yeah, it can happen, but sometimes it's no one's fault, and it's because the state of California removed or added something. And sometimes maps aren't added because in unpopulated cities, people aren't going to take the time to go over there and map it. Yeah, it definitely can happen, but also what we're seeing now is Cal Fire is making a lot of new laws, and we're in the state of California. You're probably in a fire zone. So a lot of places are getting mapped, not only that you're just in a fire zone, but you're in a very high fire zone, you're in a moderate fire zone. So sometimes things can be added and we don't know.
Kimberly, the other question I have for James, during the due diligence, and we want to be prior to making an offer, if you want to find out if the property that you're interested in making an offer has any claims, I'm talking about the liability insurance. Is that something we can find out from the insurance company prior to making an offer?
Okay, this one is for James. Is he still on?
James,
Yeah.
Okay, hi, James. So we have a question for you. Thomas is asking if prior to opening escrow or prior to making an offer, are we able to find out if there were any insurance claims made on the property beforehand?
talking about commercial, large commercial,
On a commercial property?
large multifamily.
Generally not. That's where you're gonna need the help of what is that called? Inspection as well. Because keep in mind, prior claims on a home doesn't affect the home that is being purchased. It doesn't affect the insurance rate. It's understood that, you know, whether the seller disclosed it, that they fixed it or they didn't fix it, what is left, it does not affect your current insurance rate. So it's good to have a good inspector to inspect anything that might be not fixed. And also having a good buyer agent and having a seller agent that discloses everything for you that might be an issue. So that's where your partner's gonna do all the work for you. In insurance, there's no, like say, for example, damages that existed on previous claim. Usually insurance will fix it up back to whole. That's what insurance is for. It's what we call to indemnify. So in case of a loss as big as a fire, we indemnify and bring the policyholder back to where they were before the insurance claim happened. So at the close, after any claims in the past, it's understood to be brought back to its original state, nice and clean.
That's residential. How about when you're dealing with multi?
What about with multifamily or like commercial units?
With commercial units, that generally will be the seller agents supposed to list any defects, anything that they know of in their disclosure report. It's not something as a part of insurance, because insurance, we just estimate the value it costs to rebuild the unit back to the way it was. But it's understood that it's in fair condition or great condition. It's ultimately up to the inspector to determine that for the buyer. Insurance, like I said, those past claims does not affect the current insurance rate. It generally follows the policyholder that filed the claim, but it's not a permanent mark on the home. Mm-hmm. So the new homeowner starts with a fresh no claims on their history, the rate being that way, unless the homeowner that just bought the property has claims on their past property, then it affects the rate on which to insure. Does that make sense, Thomas?
That answers that.
Yes, thank you, James.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, so I wanted to ask, with this market that's moving so quickly, for each respective person who's on the panel today in their own specialized field, like what are you noticing in terms of common trends that would delay escrow or having escrow fall out?
Do you want all us to answer?
Yeah.
I'll go first. I think with the trends right now, I mean, it's on the lending side, it's really just less people qualifying, right? And I think now we're barely starting to see the market slow down a bit. As far as what will make something possibly fall escrow, I mean, they could lose their job. But I mean, that's I don't know. That's all I really have to share in regards to that. Just less people qualifying. That's what I'm seeing right now.
In terms of, I don't personally always know when a buyer falls out of a transaction. Sometimes I know it's not usually concerning something with title. Yeah, I actually I don't really have much to comment on as far as anything new trending, as far as like ways things fall out of escrow. It's not really typically a title thing.
Well, yeah, as escrow, normally when we receive like a cancellation and stuff, usually we're the last to know. So normally what I think I see is I notice a lot of the clients, they're unsure. A lot of the clients are unsure of the rates, the market they're not sure of. Also, the stock market is going crazy too. So that's affecting a lot of people, So those are things I notice. Some of my deals, we're on the sixth buyer right now. Just keep canceling because of, maybe money issues here, stock market here, family issues here. So there's many reasons we run into, but nothing specific.
I'll just be transparent with you. When you guys are struggling and the inventory is low, that means less NHGs for us. So we're in the same boat as you. When everyone's struggling and there's no houses to sell, that means no NHGs for us. You have to legally get an NHG in every property sale transaction, correct? So when the inventory is low, less NHGs. And when you're trying to save money on a transaction, people go for the cheaper NHG. The cheaper NHG that doesn't have what my company has. And I keep talking about my company because we are vetted by CAR. We do have a great reputation. So in terms of the market, I see that people would probably go to a cheaper NHG. But just keep in mind that an NHG can affect your sale transaction. So just stick with your $74.95. But like I said, when you guys are struggling, that means less NHGs for us as well.
Thank you, Karen, for asking that question. So there's a lot of cancellation due to high interest rates. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the buyer gets pre-qualified. Maybe they can qualify up to 900,000, but doesn't mean that they feel comfortable making that mortgage payment because due to, like Andrew was explaining, the stock market, we have the highest gasoline prices, inflation, everything is on the high side.
My brain I just caught up with something actually. I just realized, one thing that, it's nothing new, but I mean, one thing we do see a lot is, and this has to do with ordering the prelim ahead of time, the preliminary title report ahead of time, is sometimes people don't realize that there are other people in their family on title when a property is not just like a husband and wife, but there's been like lots of people on title over the years, and they don't realize that someone wasn't actually taken off title or things like that. Make sure the whole family is okay with selling the property, because I mean, actually one things I hear of properties falling out of escrow is someone decided, oh, they're not game with what offer was accepted or things like that. So just making sure that everybody who's on board with the transaction is definitely on board with the transaction, who has to come forward to satisfy close of escrow.
Thank you, Joe. We have some questions from Mindy.
I have a couple of questions. So the first one for James. James, can you elaborate on the umbrella policy as to the damages to the home? Like if there's a drunk driving that hits the wall at the exterior of the property. And then the second question for Sage, on the NHG report, how long is it valid for? And then don't we, as the landlord needs to give the NHG report to the tenant as well? So, thank you.
James.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. I'll answer the first part. So if someone, let's say a drunk driver hits your home, right? You're going to want to have good coverage A for your home, the cost to rebuild your home. That's what's going to build your home back. It's not the liability umbrella coverage. The person that hits your car, they're going to need umbrella coverage because to cover the loss that was damaged to your home. Generally, you could file something under your homeowner's insurance, and then your homeowners will indemnify you. They'll subrogate it and go after the party that's actually at fault. Like say, for example, if a tree falls on your home, right? It's not the other party that you filed a claim with. It's actually you filed the claim on your own property. insurance to cover the neighbor's tree falling on your home. And in which case your insurance company may subrogate the other party, meaning they'll go after the other party to recoup those losses. Umbrella coverage now, it's going to cover what's called liabilities, not the coverage to replace your home, but liability that may arise. It used to be in the past $1 million umbrella was more than sufficient, but now we have umbrella coverage that goes up to $20 million because people like to sue in California. We have more litigation lawyers than I think all the other states combined. So $20 million umbrella, we have that here. What umbrella covers is that once your underlying limits are met for your auto, generally, if you have like 250,000 in liability coverage, once that is met, then the umbrella coverage kicks in. Same thing with your home. Your home may have 300,000 in liability coverage for in case someone gets hurt or someone falls in a pool, drowns, and the other party wishes to pursue legal action. That 300,000 is not going to be enough in liability coverage. In which case the umbrella kicks in. You can get umbrella for additional $1 million coverage per person, comes out to about $300. Very inexpensive. For a family of two, about $500, right? So your umbrella coverage is going to be very inexpensive coverage. You could have in addition to your underlying limits from 1 million up to 20 million in additional coverage.
So typically NHGs, they last 6 months up to a year. Like Thomas and I were discussing earlier, we never know what's going to be added or removed from that NHG. So if you can get an NHG, if you're in escrow for a year, you're trying to sell this house for over a year, and it's been a while, just order another NHG. You never know. Just do your due diligence and get it. But typically they last up to 6 months to a year. And then the second question was about leases. I'm sorry. What was the question? Okay. Yeah, and then same exact thing. So we do the tenant flood leases. So what that means is that we're going to give you those 6 hazards that are legally required. It's like a $20 report. Just give it to your tenants. And it's just good to have because it's going to be based on the parcel of that property for that tenant. It's not on the whole entire property. It's just based on the parcel. And that's where we get the information from.
Thank you, Sage. Okay, we have another question. What do you need before opening escrow on a trust sale? What does a listing trustee need before listing?
Oh, on a trust sale?
Yeah.
Well, in terms of title, if the property is in a trust and the original trustees are acting as the seller of the property, all we need is a certification of trust. If the trustee if the owner hired a professional trustee that doesn't match the name, like let's say, Joe Haggerty of the Ultra Neon Trust, and there's no way to kind of connect those two, we may need to see a copy of the trust to verify, who are the original trustees. If the original trustor is deceased, then we would need the full trust agreement, every single page, and any amendments added to it, because one line could change the whole transaction. Well, from who's going to be required to act. Make sure that if you do have a deceased owner whose property is in a trust, they're able to provide all of these documents to title and escrow for review.
So also the death certificate as well, right? And then also make sure that you have that trust portion in your file for you and your broker.
Okay, yeah, so what Mindy and Joe said is very true. And one thing that we run into in escrow is that a lot of people, they will open as a trust, they hold title as a trust, but they don't have an account that matches the names. And that will cause some issues later on down the line as well. So make sure if they're gonna hold as a LLC, a trust, make sure they have accounts that match so they could get the funds. We can't send funds just to, your friend, or like, this is my brother, just send it to him. We can't do that. So we gotta have documentation for everything.
Thank you. And then we have one more for Sage. What recourse does a buyer have when a mistake is found in the NHG report after the close of escrow?
What resources a buyer have?
What recourse does a buyer have when a mistake is found in the NHG report after the close of escrow?
So if they're gonna find a mistake in the close of escrow, like I was talking about before, look at that NHG's terms and conditions. Like I said, if for some reason there's an issue within that NHG that we provided, my specific company, you're not gonna take the fall, we're gonna take the fall. So look at your NHG company and see if they have that in the terms and conditions. Because say you go with a company and that happens and a buyer's pissed and they're like, why didn't you tell me about this? Or I didn't know that this is around here. I didn't know that this hazardous waste site was here. You're gonna look like you didn't have it together. And if for any reason it does happen, the NHG company should have your back, right? So that's the best advice that I could give you.
Thank you, Sage. I think that's all the questions for today. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, everyone here in person. Thank you to our panelists. And thank you on behalf of YPN and the Education Committee for tuning in. Thank you.